Ceausescu's laser, you know, the one that supposedly shot down Soviet tanks in 1968 when Czechoslovakia was invaded. A myth, of course, but like any myth, it must have a kernel of truth. Watch the video until the end to find out what it is. Maestro, the tape.
Prague citizens understood occupation by force. The Russians, though supposed allies, were unwelcome. Many Czechs' fighting spirit rose, and they fought back against overwhelming power. It showed the free world and Russia that their will to shape their destiny was stronger than any tank or gun.
The summer of 1968 was hot in Romania. Soviet tanks had invaded the streets of Prague, crushing the Velvet Revolution. The other communist states, including Romania, felt threatened. Ceausescu had only been in power for 3 years. He hadn't consolidated his authority. He felt the pressure from the party heavyweights and his competitors breathing down his neck. He had to eliminate some of them and win others over to his side. For that, he played the nationalism card. That is, Romania was a socialist state, but first and foremost, a state that had the right to independence from Moscow, a mature, self-sufficient socialist state. And that card worked well at first. In 1968, the Velvet Revolution in Prague follows. The Soviets invade and crush any movement against them from the very beginning. The message was clear. Neighboring socialist countries are free as long as they do what Moscow tells them. Ceausescu is put in a critical situation. Should he continue with the nationalist message in such moments? After all, it's also a chance to show that he has personality. He dares do the unimaginable. He holds a rally of 100,000 in Bucharest to condemn the Soviet invasion.
Dear comrades, citizens of the Romanian country, the entry of the troops of the 5 socialist countries into Czechoslovakia is a great mistake, a serious danger for peace in Europe.
After the meeting, Moscow is shocked. Washington is delighted. In a few days in August, a diplomatic dance takes place in which Ceausescu maintains a fine balance between the two extremes. On one hand, he understands that he has gone too far, and, after a few days, he comes to an understanding with the Soviets, firmly assuring them of his socialist intentions and adopts the line of hard policies in the years to come. On the other hand, Ceausescu opens up a bit to the West, keeping an eye on their technologies. For example, he invites Romanian scientist Henry Coanda to lead the Institute for Scientific and Technical Creation in Romania. During this diplomatic dance, the country is boiling. At the border with the Soviet world, the concentration of Soviet troops is being reported. Will Romania be invaded by the Soviets or not? Our parents and grandparents remember those days. After all, it wasn't hard to imagine. It wouldn't have been the first Soviet invasion. The invasion doesn't occur. Especially because the Soviets saw that Ceausescu was essentially one of their own, determined to follow the path of socialism. For the public, however, someone seems like a winner. Ceausescu, of course, because he stopped the Soviets. The Securitate wants to take advantage of this vessel and in a few years releases a myth worthy of the legends of Olympus. Ceausescu had a secret weapon with which he stopped the Soviets, a laser that could melt tanks. What does the myth say? That the Soviet tanks tried to cross the border into Romania. There they would have been met by a special train with 20 cars. One of them was supposed to have a secret weapon, the most powerful laser in the world, and the other cars were supposed to support the weapon. The laser would have melted tanks from a distance with temperatures that would have exceeded tens of thousands of degrees. Ordinary people would have seen that death ray from a distance as something extremely bright. Another element was added over time. Ceausescu's laser was said to have been built by Henry Coanda. Yes, the Romanian scientist who returned from abroad the year after the invasion of Czechoslovakia. Ceausescu's laser is clearly a myth. Here are a few reasons why, starting with number 1. A single secret weapon of this type can't stop an invasion on a wide front. You can destroy a few tanks in front of you, but when you have tanks spread out over a front of many hundreds of kilometers, it's impossible. The Soviets wouldn't have been stopped even by this weapon. They would have rather captured it to see what it was. It's true, today we have lasers that can melt metal. They are found in metallurgical plants and work at very short distances. We also have long-range laser weapons that destroy drones, but we don't know of any lasers that can melt tanks from a distance. The fact is that, in 1968, no one in the world had such technology, let alone in Romania, a country where physics research was not that advanced. So then, where does the myth come from? What is its grain of truth? Well, the grain of truth is that Romania had a tradition in lasers, because the fourth laser in the world was built here. The man behind this achievement is physicist Ioan Îmbrimersa Agarbiceanu, the son of the well-known writer and priest Ion Agarbiceanu. Thus, in 1929, Ion attended the Electrotechnical Institute at the University of Bucharest, led by Dragomir Hurmuzescu. With Hurmuzescu's recommendation, he continued studying at the Faculty of Sciences in Paris and earned his physics degree in 1930. Then he pursued his doctorate under the supervision of Professor Aimé Cotton, defending in 1934 a thesis on the fluorescence and absorption spectrum of vapors. After his doctorate, he went to London with the support of the Manaxa Industrial Group, where he worked directly in industry at the British Vickers Armstrong Company in the metals spectroscopy laboratory. He then continued in Romania at the Reșița factories, Malaxa factories, and Industria Aeronautică Română in Brașov. In 1940, he joined the Department of General Physics at the University of Bucharest, and in 1948 became a professor of general physics at the Institute of Petroleum and Gas in Bucharest. After the war, the foundations were laid for what later became the Institute of Atomic Physics at Magurel, near Bucharest. In 1949, he became head of the Optical Spectroscopy Laboratory at the Institute. Here is how what followed is described in the book The History of Physics in Romania. Between 1956 and 1969, Professor Agarbiceanu developed this laboratory in several directions. High-resolution optical spectroscopy for the study of hyperfine structures, optical methods of Hertzian spectroscopy for the study of energy levels of atoms and molecules, and the study of thin layers, aiming to obtain Fabry-Perot standards. Notice the term Fabry-Perot standards. They are those parallel mirrors which, when perfectly aligned, allow the construction of a laser by a beam that travels back and forth between them. After the publication of the first theoretical article on the possibility of building a maser that operates in the field of optical and infrared radiation in 1958, Professor Agarbiceanu started some research in this direction. The first laser with a solid active medium, the ruby, was built in 1960 by Maiman. Then it continues. Coordinated by Professor Agarbiceanu and Dr. Laurențiu Blanaru, the group built Romania's first laser in about 2 years, using a helium-neon gaseous active medium. This infrared laser made the effect easy to show. The result was announced at the Third International Congress of Quantum Electronics and published in the proceedings of this Congress, which no Romanian was able to attend. Romania is therefore one of the first countries where a laser was built as early as 1962. This is the grain of truth I was telling you about. Now, you shouldn't imagine that the laser built by Agarbiceanu was powerful. It was infrared, and Professor Agarbiceanu himself described it as being too weak to melt a fly. But it was enough to demonstrate coherence, collimation, and stimulated emission, essential properties of a laser. In other words, it couldn't melt any fly, even if he wanted to, let alone a tank. What do we take away from this myth of Ceausescu's laser? I would say this beautiful story of Agarbiceanu, and the fact that research in physics can also be done in Romania as long as it is connected to global research. There is no Romanian physics. Physics is universal, but there is physics in Romania as well. I had the opportunity to see a copy of Agarbiceanu's laser and to ask how his achievement was possible. The answer, as often happens in physics, there was a favorable circumstance that was taken advantage of by a man who knew his craft well. Professor Agarbiceanu specializes in red Fabry-Perot mirrors. When it became clear that they were crucial for generating the stimulated emission of the laser, Agarbiceanu and his colleagues got to work in the laboratory and succeeded. That's pretty much the secret behind it. Knowledge and hard work. That's all for today. Until next time, please subscribe if you haven't already by clicking this subscribe button right now. Thank you to our Patreon supporters and channel members. I am Christian Presura. You are cool and I wish you all the best. Goodbye.